What's up guys, Bob here for Cooking with Bob and Allison. This is a little supplemental video from a show we did on March 5th that teaches you how to make pasta. We made an awesome chicken fettuccine Alfredo dish with broccolini and toasted garlic bread with Parmesan cheese. Oh man, it was awesome. So if you want to check that video out, go and do that. This is though how I like to make pasta. Now, let me just tell you, there's lots of ways to make pasta. One of the ways is just to buy it. That's probably the easiest way to do it, right? You just buy the box pasta, put it in some salted water, boil it till it's done. You know the test where you just throw the pasta against the cabinet. If it sticks, it's done. Well, that's an easy way to do it. But if you're like me, sometimes you want to get a little fancy. Maybe you want to learn a new skill. That's like I did, and so I learned how to make pasta. So today I'm going to teach you lots of different ways to make pasta. Like I said, here's the way I like to do it. First, we're going to start with 00 flour. Now I admit, this flour is a little more tough to come by. We like to get ours from Whole Foods or we order it from Amazon. Now, although it's more difficult to come by, it is not that expensive. The reason though you want 00 flour is because the gluten in this flour is different than your bread flour or all-purpose flour, and this is going to give you really silky pasta. All right, so we're going to start. You're going to need some kind of flat surface. You're not going to want to do this on a table that has lots of holes and stuff in it, so a cutting board, or this is a pasta or a pastry board here, is going to be your best spot. We're just going to put this right in there, and then we're going to want to create a little well. So you want to think like mashed potatoes and gravy. You know how you make a little well for the gravy? You're gonna do that with your pasta. You can do it with your hand, or you can use just a little bowl that you're just gonna make a little well. And instead of gravy, we're gonna put eggs in there, right? We're gonna put eggs in. And so I've got 8 eggs here. Now you can let these eggs, you can go right from the fridge. They tend to be a little better and your dough's a little bit easier to work with if they're room temperature. So you're gonna want some room temperature eggs, and you're gonna wanna separate the whites and the yolks. Now we did this last time. If you didn't see that, you can check out our very first episode where we made some surf and turf and we separated eggs from the yolk in our creme brulee. So we're gonna follow those same steps. We're just gonna crack the egg and then separate the whites and the yolks. And the way I do that, again, is just by letting it run right through my hand. Now, I had a lady tell me she has never seen anyone do it this way before, and that don't surprise me. I'm kind of an unconventional guy. And so there's other ways of doing this where you toss the yolk back and forth in the eggshell, and that gets the same kind of result. I don't know, maybe I just like to get my hands dirty, and it makes me feel like I've actually accomplished something. Now you want to make sure after you do this, you definitely wash your hands because it is a little bit gross. It reminds me of a scene from one of my favorite movies, Ghostbusters. But we're going to do this again with 8 eggs. Make sure these eggs are room temperature, and I don't know what kind of eggs you use. There's some really great local places to get eggs. There's a place in our North My area right by the high school called Bushel and a Peck. Bushel and a Peck has really good eggs. I happen to have a really good friend who I work with. Her name is Kelly Travis. She has a whole bunch of chickens, and I give her the carton and she gets me some eggs. My wife wants me to get some chickens in the area where we live. You're actually allowed to have chickens in this kind of like residential area. We're not out in the sticks. No roosters, but you can have hens. And she wants to name all of them after country singers. So she wants Dolly and Reba and Patsy. And we've yet to pull the trigger on that, but maybe soon we'll get our own chickens. All right, now our eggs are in the flour. We're gonna get a fork and we're gonna stir them up. Now that we've got all of our eggs in the flour, we're going to want to add some salt. Now you ultimately are going to add salt to your water as well, but it's really good to add the salt now because we want that salt in as we combine all of the eggs. So you're going to do a teaspoon, or just, you're going to do a dash on there, right? And then we're going to also add some olive oil right into the egg, and then we're going to mix them up. Now, You can also do this in a food processor. So if you have a food processor, you can mix all of it right in there. Again, I just like to get my hands dirty a little bit and do it on the board. This is kind of how my grandma used to do it. You know, my grandma, she would make noodles for us as a gift. And noodles and caramels and turtles. And oh, my grandma made just the best stuff. And this is always how she did it by hand. Now that our egg yolk is all the way mixed up, we're gonna slowly be adding the flour into that as well. Now, I gotta say that pasta is temperamental, guys. And so there are so many factors that play into making pasta. Even elevation makes a difference. So if you are like in Colorado, your measurements might be different. I'm just gonna be real with you. And the humidity in the air makes a difference. So if you've got like a whole home humidifier, it's gonna be different. So the other reason I really like to do it with my hands is because it really is a game about feeling. And we're gonna feel this pasta out, and we're gonna make sure it gets incorporated nice and good. Now, in a minute, you're gonna notice that this dough is going to become really dry, and we're gonna need to add some liquid to it. That's what this water over here is reserved for. So we're going to be adding a little bit of water into our pasta dough as needed. Now, some folks like to add, instead of water, they won't do egg yolks. They'll do a couple whole eggs, whites and all, and some egg yolks, and then feel for it. I tend to just really love how silky and creamy the egg yolks are by themselves. So we're gonna keep folding this in, and then as needed to get our pasta into the right consistency, we're gonna add some water. So we've been kneading our dough for a little while, and as you can see, it's not quite the desired consistency. It's just a little dry still. So again, this is what this water is for. Now, sometimes I'll get a spray bottle and I'll fill the spray bottle up with water and use it that way. You really just want to add a little bit at a time, and it doesn't take much. Just kind of get it in your hands, sprinkle it on the dough, and then continue to work it. You're just looking for it to form a really nice ball and form up really well. So just add a little bit of water at a time. Don't go overboard with it, and we'll get it into a nice ball in no time. So we're gonna keep kneading our dough and working it, and eventually, I promise you, eventually it will look like this, and you'll get it into a really nice little ball, and it'll be super pretty, silky, really good pasta. Now, pasta that is just made is gonna be real springy, and so you're not gonna wanna work it just yet. And here's how you tell. You take your thumb and you put it right in the middle of the pasta. If your thumb indent stays there, you're good. If it springs back too quick, it's not ready yet. The water and the flour work together, activate the gluten, and that's what makes your pasta real silky. And the egg yolks add the fat to help break that gluten up and make it just really smooth pasta. So just do your thumb test. If it springs back right away, it's not ready. You're gonna have to let it rest for a while. And so you're gonna put it in a little bit of olive oil and stick it in a bowl, put a towel over it, and set it somewhere to rest for about 30 or 40 minutes, and then you'll be ready to go. We already let this pasta rest up, and it passes the thumb test, so now we're gonna quarter it. So we're gonna cut it into fourths, and then we're gonna get it on our pasta maker. Now, the key with pasta is to get the dough really nice and flat. There's a lot of tools out there to do that. Maybe you've seen the hand crank that you feed the pasta through and it flattens it out, and you do it over and over and over. Well, I used to have that. And as soon as I found out that KitchenAid made one for the mixer, I threw that old one away and I bought the automatic. Can't say my grandmother approved, but man, it sure made pasta making a lot quicker. So if you have one of those, that's awesome. If you have the hand crank, that's cool. If you're using a rolling pin, then you're just gonna be ripped after we make this pasta. So let's quarter it, get over to the mixer, and flatten her out. All right, so now we've got our pasta quartered. We're gonna add it to the floured surface here, and we're just gonna let it hang out. Now we're just gonna go ahead and do one of these quarters just to show you how we do it. So I'm gonna start off just flattening it a little bit by hand and keeping it nice and floured, not too much. We don't want it caked on there. You just want it to be workable and easy for you to maneuver and fold. And then we're gonna head over to the pasta maker. So it's gonna look about like this, and we're gonna go flatten it out. Let's go over here. All right, so this is the KitchenAid attachment. It's got different levels. You can set it on 1, which is the thickest, meaning that's where we'll start. And then you can take it all the way down to an 8, which is really, really thin. So you can, they make attachments for angel hair pasta. We have this one, and we're gonna make fettuccine with it today. But you're gonna see, this is actually gonna get about like 5 feet long. It's really gonna be impressive. Let's watch it happen. Now, like I said, we're using this machine. You may be using the hand crank. You're just gonna wanna start it out on its biggest setting and let it fold out. Now that it's here, we're gonna fold it into itself, just like that, kind of like you're folding up a wallet, and we're gonna run it through again. Now you'll notice if your dough is becoming too sticky here, all you need to do is go back to your floured surface and get a little more flour on it. Right now we're pretty good. We'll go a few more times before we'll get it back on the flour. All right, now we're gonna take that gap and we're gonna make it smaller. And this is where it's really gonna start to get long. Let's pass it through one more time. All right, now we're gonna make that gap even smaller. We're gonna go to about a 4 here. Let's do one more time. And you can just see that every time you pass it through, your pasta is getting a little bit thinner and a little bit longer. All right, we're gonna go about to a 6 now here on the dial. We're going to go one more time, and then we're about ready to cut into fettuccine. right, now we've got our pasta dough. Look how much longer it got. Okay, maybe I exaggerate a little bit. Maybe it's not 5 feet, but it's pretty long, much longer than it was initially. So let's get it back on the board. We're gonna cut it, and then I'm gonna show you 2 ways that you can cut it into fettuccine. All right, so we're just gonna cut it once here, just so it's a little more manageable to work with, about the size that pasta would be if you bought it from the store. Now we have 2 really nice pieces of pasta. Now we're gonna flour them a little bit here on both sides there. And just go ahead and rub that in. Get that all on there. Yeah. And so we're gonna go back to the mixer in a minute and show you how we allow the machine to cut our pasta, but I also wanna show you how you can hand cut it as well. So we're gonna just fold it in like this. So you're just gonna kind of go back and forth with it like that. Trying to keep the ends nice and even. Yeah, and it's gonna look just like that. Now this is going to allow us to cut our pasta by hand. So let me grab a knife and we'll get to that. All right, so let's make sure our ends are squared up. And then when you cut with a knife, the thing you don't want to happen is this, okay? This is how fingers disappear and how really good pasta turns into trash with blood on it. By the way, speaking of coloring pasta, do you know that if you do this in the food processor, you can add any color you want with food coloring? It won't change the flavor, but it'll make it really fun for kids to eat. You can have red pasta, purple pasta, green pasta. It's just kind of cool. So you want to rock the knife from the front to the back. So let's just rock our knife here, and we're just gonna give this pasta cut like this. And you can cut this as wide as you want. If you want a wider pasta, that's good. Like I said, we're going for fettuccine today. So we're cutting it like this. Now we're gonna sprinkle this with flour. And then we're just gonna mix up here. And there is your awesome homemade fettuccine. Now, this pasta is gonna be about 90 seconds in a pot of salted, always salt your pasta water, and just get it to a rolling boil. And you can store it just like this. You can make a little nest with it, and it'll last in the fridge for about 3 days. The longer it stays in the fridge, it will kind of lose its gold color and turn gray. That doesn't mean it's bad, it just means it turned gray. And you want to eat it quick, okay? Don't let it sit too much longer, but it will actually keep in the freezer for about a couple months. All right, one last thing, let's show you the really cool attachment, and maybe, just maybe, KitchenAid will become a sponsor. Come check this out. So I know what you're thinking, man, these are expensive. I can't afford a KitchenAid mixer. Look, I don't blame you. My wife had a really generous uncle, and this is a wedding gift. So I also find these used all the time on the Facebook Marketplace. Not that I'm like constantly looking for cooking attachments or cooking, gear, but I find them all the time. All right, so it's on, we're gonna turn it on, and this is gonna turn into really, really quick fettuccine. And there you have it. Now, if you want to preserve this pasta, you're not going to cook it right away. Let's say you want to give it as a gift. I love giving food as a gift. In fact, this Christmas, I gave a lot of people pasta. I spent a lot of nights in my kitchen, right, making this exact recipe. You want to dry this out. So you can either get, it's like called a pasta tree, where it actually looks like a tree where you dry your pasta. You run a rope, run a clothesline, hang it over a clean surface. My granny used to just lay them flat on the cutting board and let them dry in the laundry room. Any way you want, just make sure you dry your pasta if you plan to give it as a gift or save it. So there you have it, folks. How to make homemade pasta. Maybe you thought it was difficult. Trust me, it's not. It's really, really simple. And if you have any questions along the way, feel free to reach out to us. Don't forget, If you're interested in how we're going to use this, check out our video on March 5th. That is a chicken fettuccine Alfredo dish that is just going to be better than Olive Garden, better than Carrabba's, certainly better than anything you would get in a jar, and you're gonna be able to make it. It'll be real simple. Hey, thanks for making pasta with me. You guys are welcome back anytime.